Welcome back to episode 52 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Testori. On episode 52, I was joined by Nick Chamberlain. Nick is an online marketer who specializes in LinkedIn marketing, but we speak about marketing and business for a portion of this podcast. He was super vulnerable, super open, and just a very cool, honest, frank guy. He speaks about the drive that his daughter gives him. He speaks about how religion and purpose is one of his biggest motivators and things that gets him to do what he doesn't want to do on a daily basis. He then talks about a time when he was 19 and he nearly committed suicide. He also talks about depression, and honestly, this conversation takes so many different tangents. We'll probably speak about philosophy for a good majority of this podcast and really underroot the why on this podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like and share. I'm going to get into things now. As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Testori, and the Grappling Growth podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy. Nick, pleasure to have you on the podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nick, what does growth look like to you?
Growth looks like to me, so before, growth looked to me as I split it into 4 sections. I had health, wealth, financials, and socials. Financial, social, physical, and mental. And then I sort of had like soul, which is like the way that you like to keep yourself healthy, the way that you like to make money, the way that you like to be with your friends, all these different things. But I've refined it now, and now I break it down into faith, love, and strength. And growth for me is becoming better at those 3 and basically like peeling back the layers and moving closer to my purpose. So right now, the way that I execute on love, faith, and strength is probably going to be different to the way I do it in 5 years or 10 years. But I don't know what that's going to be in 5 or 10 years. So I just do it to the best of my ability now. And eventually I hit a point where I realize like this isn't either aligned with me or I've sort of like hit my cap here. And then I can peel back the layer, find some new purpose and a new way of executing on that.
And when did that change come for you and how?
I'd say that came for me at the end of last year, so end of 2024. I'd started my own business after breaking off from a co-founder, and I reached a point where I made like 5 or 6 grand by myself, and so I was at a point where for me and the way that I'm living my life, like I didn't really need much more money, and so I was sort of like reassessing, why am I making money? Like, why am I worried about the rest of it? Because technically I'd ticked off financial. And so all I had to worry about was social, physical, and mental. They didn't feel right. And so I was like I was rereading the Bible. I was listening to a lot of philosophy stuff. And yeah, it just came down to those 3. Because I think for me, faith is faith in yourself. And so acting in a way that you know that you can do something, and like having the, not like super high standards, but like the belief that you can hit that and that it's possible for you to get better. It's faith in other people. So trusting other people that they can do better and that they are going to do the best that they can. And also a faith in society, that just like the people that you don't interact with and everything that you don't see going on in the world, like people do intrinsically have some sort of ideal, whether you're religious or not, there's some sort of ideal that people are working towards, and that we will make our way there, even if it's not how we see it. Love comes from like showing up every day, love for what I do, love for the people around me, like loved ones and just like general other people, just trying to put as much good out as I can, like trying to be a light for people. And then strength comes down to basically just like capability, like being able to provide for people, being able to be present for people, being able to just like listen and try and help in the best way that I possibly can. And sometimes that's removing myself from the situation because I can't, or I'm too emotionally invested, and so I'm not making good decisions or giving good advice or whatever. But yeah, I think if I focus on those 3, then my day-to-day becomes pretty clear what to do.
There's a lot that you went through there. So I'll try and start from the top down. You mentioned this happened pretty much at the back end of last year, so a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Was there a big revelation, a big thing that happened as to how you kind of came into this ideal?
Well, like I said, it was when I hit the 5-6K in the month, I realized that I didn't need much more, and so I felt my motivation go over everything. I think it's a similar thing to, I think most business people that I speak to hit it at 10K because people just pick like an arbitrary number to
Yeah.
hit a goal, and then they sort of hit it, and they go like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And I thought from having to like live off savings and things like this, that once I was able to finance my lifestyle, that I would feel a lot better. But actually, I just lost the motivation completely. And it sort of threw me backwards because then I was like, the things that I've done to get here, I thought was going to help me, but actually I almost feel worse now. And so now I need to reconstruct my way of living and like sort of my philosophy for life. And so I
Why
was
do you
doing,
think you felt worse?
I think it's because it didn't feel how I thought it was going to feel.
What do you think it was going to feel like?
I thought I was going to feel very free. I thought I was going to feel, um, I thought I was going to feel very proud. And obviously, like pride is one of the things that people say that you should try and avoid. Um, and I think, yeah, it just didn't, I didn't feel the success that I thought I would feel from building something up myself and learning all these new skills. As I didn't do sales and marketing before. So that the sales was a huge bit for me. But then once I learned how to do it, it just sort of felt like, oh, that's just like life hasn't changed that much.
That's
It's
it.
still just going day to day.
So, but because I'm so intrigued by this subject, because this is actually something that I speak about with friends, and I think you're right. It's people again, like 10K is this big shiny number in the online world, and for me, my like I think it really comes down to what you're motivated by, and I have friends who make 30, 50 grand a month. So I'll talk about one friend in particular. He's making very good money, and he has always wanted a Rolex. He got his Rolex, and the happiness. And this was literally 2 weeks ago. He sent me a photo, and then he FaceTime, and he's like, "Yo, like, ask me what the time is," kind of thing. And for me, I was so happy for him. Like, I don't care about Rolex. I've got no interest in 12, 15 grand Rolex. But I was so happy for him that he hit that. But I know that the feeling of a Rolex of a car is fleeting, and maybe it's because I've been so fascinated by looking at studies such as the experience that we have from materialistic possessions, and it's kind of a hierarchy, and it's you might turn around the feeling that you get from a good coffee. You wake up that's going to kind of scratch that itch, and it's kind of just something really small, but there's a pyramid, there's layers, and
Hmm.
for me, and you spoke about Thailand, Vietnam, the the thing that I still have extreme levels of endorphins from is traveling, is meeting people abroad, is having these experiences. And I remember speaking to a pretty cool client of mine a few years ago, and I said to him, I was like, right now, and he's not materialistic in the slightest, but I'm not going to remember that I've got these £200 Nike Vapor Max on my feet right now talking to you. I only remember it because of that conversation specifically. I was like, maybe I'll remember this in a few years' time.
Yeah.
You don't remember the trainers that you wore 2 years ago on your feet, but
Hmm.
you remember very clearly that holiday that you had when you were 9 years old with your family in Disneyland or wherever, because
Yeah.
the memories are so profound, and you remember the laughter that you had with loved ones and the experiences. And I'm sure a lot of your life purpose right now is having this experience, memories, and alignment with your daughter. So, I guess kind of a small segue. How do you feel your daughter has shaped your just discipline and drive to be successful right now, and how does that motivate you on a day to day basis? How does she? Sorry.
Okay. So in terms of the motivation, I feel like the using my daughter for motivation is useful in like hard moments. It's useful as like a oh, I can't be asked to do this. Oh, you need to, like, you need, like, this girl, she can't go and make money herself,
What's
you
her name?
know. Nevea.
Nevea. That's a beautiful
Yeah,
name.
thank you. So I actually got that off of have you ever watched Top Boy?
Yeah, I have, but I don't remember Nevea and Top Boy.
It was so fleeting. When I watched it, I was 14. I was like, that's the name I want. And now when I say the name, people are like, oh, that's beautiful. And I go, yeah, I got it for Gang Show.
So,
And then they
so,
go,
so if you have a
oh.
son, you're going to call him Sully. Shame.
I don't have the complexion to call my kid Sunny, unfortunately.
Oh, no,
but but yeah, no, it works in the bad moments, like as a just get up, do it, and go along. But it wasn't something that lasted for like. I remember when I saw her, I was like, oh, I'm gonna give you the world. I'm gonna give you everything. But like, to be like really honest, that probably faded after like a week or two. Like that feeling of consistent high motivation and everything just doesn't last. Like motivation's fleeting, isn't it? It's a feeling. It comes and
yeah.
goes. But what it did do is, again, it challenged my philosophy on life, and it made me realize for sure that it's way better to be chasing something for purpose rather than for happiness. So I was 22 when my daughter was born. And as you can imagine, as like a 21-year-old, 20-year-old, going out a lot, drinking a lot, basically like meeting up with friends all the time. And I was really enjoying myself. But then as soon as Nevea came in, like it really made me sort of sit down and think about like how do I want to be and how do I actually want to show up. And chasing happiness doesn't allow me to be that person, because optimizing for happiness in the moment, in every moment, just ends up failing, because it like starts off well and then it starts dipping down and down and down and down and down.
Why do you think that's the case?
Pardon?
Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's just your baseline resetting on it. And also, like, if you're really optimizing for happiness, like not to say that I was like doing it, but like you'd be doing crack or heroin, wouldn't you? Like on the extreme side of things. And so to do that, obviously you come back down. You don't invest in your future. You're investing so much into your present that you're taking away from your future. And I found that having a better balance of being able to invest into myself and show up in a way of being able to build a business, being able to meditate each day and be more present, eating good food, so that like that's something that allowed me to raise my baseline happiness without having the peaks and troughs, and is something which is like sustainable over time.
I think what you've spoken about is the journey a lot of people go through, not with regards to having a child, but I think your 20s typically, you're in this state of dopamine chasing. You're looking for these ultra highs. You go from being a teenager who is pretty much told what to do, when to do by your parents, decisions are made for you, and then you see like most people's first leash of freedom is they go to college, they can bunk classes, they have their own schedule, so to speak, and depending on the household that you're in, you're kind of just given autonomy over yourself. And then university or working, it's the first real just, and that's it. People go to freshers and they go crazy. Well, at least
Mm-hmm.
I did, and that's why everyone in your block has freshers flu. But kind of overarchingly, I think the point that you're talking about is looking at and comparing you're chasing dopamine, but then you're leaning into endorphins. And endorphins, for me, they're more stabilized. It's you can raise your level of endorphins if you're working towards your passion and purpose. Then that helps you. If you do a hard workout, it's a feeling that can be prolonged. It can then push you for the rest of the day and then the next day. And I think the happiest people that I meet are the ones who have learned how to raise their base level of
Hmm.
endorphins. Have you heard of a Japanese concept called ikigai?
Yes, yeah. I've not read the book, but I know the concept.
The book I don't think is too good. I kind of rubbish, so I
I
wouldn't.
won't read it then.
Yeah, I kind of moved away from it. But I remember coming across the concept of ikigai, and for me, it kind of just changed the way how I viewed things, and I really and typically we come up with these new changes when things have gone wrong or haven't gone to plan. But I was in this transition. I was creating my new coaching business about a year and a half ago. I remember I was in South Korea. That's when I came across it, and that was it for me. I was like, okay, this is perfect. Just being motivated by money, and that again, motivation. This is what David Goggins says. He's motivation is short term. He's like, I'm not motivated. I'm driven. And I
Mm.
think when you're motivated, it's as you said, you wake up in the morning, you do the work based on how you feel. It's yeah, well, actually today. But if you have a higher purpose, if you have something you're really aligned towards, then you can really, really lean into it and
Hmm.
push yourself further ahead. I'm curious, talking about ikigai and whatnot. Are you an avid reader?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely, I like to read. I like to read.
So if you were talking to someone who was setting up their business right now, let's say 16-year-old Nick came to you and said, "Hey, I want to set up a business. What are the 3 books that I need to read in the next 3 months?" What would you say to him?
Oh, good question. Good question. Um, well, obviously, I'm in the marketing space, and from having spoken to a lot of early founders, I think it is a skill that basically everyone needs to pick up to some extent. And so, in that case, the book that really worked for me was "They Ask You Answer." I don't know if you heard that one, but it's basically around the idea of people have all these problems around certain services and products, and they ask these questions. And it's your idea to bring light to them. Like, don't hide underneath it. Just take that problem. Be grateful that you've been able to, that people are vocalizing that for you and solve it. And I think that's exactly what marketing is. You know, people have these problems, issues, misconceptions, whatever, and you just take it and you show your solution for it. Um, so I think that's huge. Um, I also think so. This one maybe would not be put down so much as a business book, but Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. That one, that one I use whenever I was in like a down sort of place, and I'll reread it. But I think just the concept of having some sort of purpose and rules that you live by, I think one is just like a good thing, and you can start to create those yourself. But for now, use someone who's like lived through so many things, spoken to so many people, and researched so many things, and sort of like take theirs as like a roadmap as what to do. But just the idea of investing in yourself and becoming a better man, woman, whatever, makes you more capable. Because at the start, your business is just you. Um, and then for the third book, as an entrepreneur, I really liked Steve Jobs' biography. I loved reading through that. It's written, there's so many little lessons in there. The idea of just trusting people. There's a story of when he was, I think he was with his girlfriend at the time, and they'd at the start of his like career or like adulthood, he was a bit of a hippie, and so I'm pretty sure they were on like a lot of drugs. But they were driving a car, and his girlfriend was unsure as to like how capable she was to be able to do it, and she was like constantly asking for help. She was like just that she needed a lot of reassurance, and so he literally said like, "You've got this," and then he went to sleep, and he just left her to it, and it was that complete faith that he put in her, and she recalls feeling like way more confident in being able to do it. And I think that goes both ways in like yourself and for other people. So obviously at the start, it's just you. As you grow, you'll probably bring in some other people to your business, whether they're like contractors or you bring them in-house. But like just having that trust in people and that trust in yourself, I think that goes a long way. Because I think for me anyway, doubt has been the biggest killer. Because as soon as doubt creeps in, I start questioning whether it's like worth doing this piece of work. Whereas if I go in with complete faith that it's going to work, again, the faith coming back, if I have complete faith that it's going to work, then I'm going to do it because I know that I will get a result from it. So I think that's one of the things that really stand out for me. And plus, it's just inspirational to see how someone can go from where he was like traveling the world and had nothing really to do with business and was more focused on this sort of like hippie kind of lifestyle. And then the way he found his purpose in bringing that sort of creative side of him along with this want for business, and he brought them both together to create a computer which could go out to the masses as opposed to keeping it within the I forget what you call them, but just like computer people space. It's so inspirational, and I think there's I haven't read that one in a couple of years now, so I can't rattle another one off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd say that would be the third book.
I'll definitely look to read that in the next few months. I'm intrigued. Where do you think the layer of doubt comes from?
I think because you never get taught about business until you go into it. And your whole life you go through and you have your parents giving you advice on what to do. You have teachers telling you what to do. You have a very clear goal set for you to pass your exams or whatever it is, or to get into this university. And everything's sort of like set out and you've seen people do it before. Everyone is doing the same thing as you. Whereas as soon as you go into business, you're by yourself. There's no real guidelines or pathway for you to follow. You sort of need to find it for yourself. You need to find other people that are running their business. Like in my family and the way that I've grown up, there's no one who's built an online business, at least. And even then, like my grandpa was a pharmacist and owned his own pharmacy. Like it's very different to running something online and everything like that, where you don't have a community around you from the get-go. Like I think it's just you're thrown into a world of uncertainty, and so you really get tested on your doubt. I think the doubt always exists. It's just that as soon as you start business, you're put into a battlefield where it's actually being tested, whereas it never really was tested before.
Yeah, so true. So in that period of time, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned to overcome doubt, and how have you built a community of people around you?
So this is like my interest in religion, I think, is one of the biggest guiders for faith. So one thing that I see in common for all religions is that God, or whatever you want to call them, the universe, anything, like, is not revealed to you. There's no one who can say for sure who put us here and what we're meant to do. And so whoever or whatever it is has demanded some sort of faith. That's how important faith is. That you are forced to either have it or be in despair. That's how important faith is. And so I think practicing it and seeing just how basically any sort of form of looking into purpose of life demands faith showed me just how important faith was. And so just trying to practice that through my actions of, I believe that if I do this, it will work, or at least it will get me closer to where I need to be. Almost like taking the outcome and putting it in someone else's hands. Like I'll do the action, and then I just trust that whatever needs to come my way is going to come back to me.
Predeterminism.
Yeah, slightly. I think there's an element of fate, but I don't like to consider myself predeterministic in the sense of like the past defines what comes in the future. Because otherwise I think it just takes away the point of doing anything now. Like, it doesn't feel as real. Like, if me being born in the family that I was born in, the space that I was born, I've turned out very differently to other people that I've grown up with. And so I don't think the past defines the future, but I think my actions can lead me in a certain direction. I just don't know for sure what the result's going to be. You know, like, I didn't think when I built a business with my co-founder up to 15 grand a month that I would then want to leave it. You see, so I think the results come about in funny ways, but I just have faith that it moves me closer to what I want to do.
I think we've addressed the bulk of it. We're talking about what we said there. That's yeah, I forgot because I was so intently listening, and I was thinking about predeterminism and layers that you went into there. But that's cool. So talking about business and how we've got here is through LinkedIn. Can you delve into a time, or the most prominent time in business, where you were just fed up, you felt like quitting?
Yeah, so I was at a point where with my co-founder, we built up a business to about 15 grand a month. He was always focused on the sales and marketing and obviously like other bits around the business as you do as a founder. I was predominantly focused on the client delivery side and some other parts of this business as you are as a founder. I got to a point where I was working on like 13 to 14 done for you contracts. And so I was looking after my daughter Monday to Thursday. Then on top of that, I'm working most of my days, 7 days a week, to be fair. And it just got to a point where the business was like successful, but I was just spending all of my time working. And so, yeah, like I was making some good money from it, but I wasn't able to show up in life the way that I wanted to. I remember having one call. I had a call with a client, and we never set like the amount of revisions that were needed because we never had anything more than like 2 revisions on anything, and that'd usually be because I tried something creative. This person was doing like 9 to 12 revisions on every single piece of content, and then was worried why the content wasn't going out. And I remember just getting on a call with them, and then them saying that basically they wanted us to refund them. And at the time, it wasn't money that we had in the bank. Like, we weren't able to just refund them. And they were, well, he was saying that like he would be very excited to teach us a lesson in business. And basically was saying that he would go through the court, he would do everything that he needs to basically show us that like we should have stuck to the things that we did, to be fair, put in the contract. I remember getting off that call and I literally just ripped my t-shirt in half. And I was like, you know what? At this point, I probably need to change something. And so, yeah, I decided that I wanted to build something that was more aligned with me. I was focused on chasing the money, and I was basically compensating the rest of my life with money. Like, I couldn't spend much time with my girlfriend because I'd be working all the time. But when we did spend time together, I'd make sure I take her out to a nice restaurant, sort of thing. Like, it was making up for my presence, making up for my time, my devotion to anyone with money. And that just wasn't the kind of person that I wanted to be. I feel like it was tearing me down as a person. It just wasn't sustainable.
A lot of men in particular talk about who are quote unquote successful, and I think success is so broadly defined. So, kind of looking at that and coming full circle as to the man and the person you are today, how do you define success?
I think the success goes back to the purpose. It's the love, strength, and faith. It's so like to go a little bit deeper on that is like I think Shrek dropped some bombs when it came
Shrek.
down to philosophy. Yeah, Shrek, man. He says ogres are like onions. I think life is like onions. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
And so
cool.
you start off and you have your big onion and you start at the top and you're peeling down a layer and you get all the way down to the root. By the time you get down to the root of that layer, you start to understand a bit more about yourself and the direction that you want to go in. And then you move on to the next layer. And now you're slightly closer to where you want to be with your purpose, but it's still not quite there, but it's the best that you got right now. So you start peeling that one down, you go all the way down to the root, and then you can move on to the next layer, and you just keep going until you get to the actual like core of the onion. And that takes however many years for people to do. Obviously, we all start in different places and just trying to put one foot in front of the other. But yeah, I think Shrek dropped the bomb there. I think the purpose comes from finding my way of building love, strength, and faith. And right now, I do that in certain ways. But like I said, in 5 years, I'm going to have peeled back a layer, got to the root, and realized that, oh no, I want to switch and do something else. And then, yeah, just acting on that.
So taking that analogy from Shrek, do you know what layer you're at right now?
I think I'm still like very early on in my layers. I think I'm still very early on in my layers. I know that, so the things that I've been through, I think gives me, I'm very privileged in the sense of I'm naturally quite intelligent, naturally quite charismatic and able to like connect with people. And those things are just things that society values. And so I've been very lucky that when they come together, it means that I can create a business which makes good money and I can get good people around me and be inspired by all these different things. I've been born in just outside of London. So like I've had a lot of inspiration, but at the same time, like I was sexually assaulted as a kid. I attempted suicide when I was 19. Like I've had some amazing things in life that I'm especially grateful for. And I've had some things which you would say like probably aren't so good in life, but like I'm grateful for those as well. I think I've experienced depression to the point where I got to where I did when I was 19. And overall, I think my purpose is moving towards helping people that are in this sort of situation and moving them towards here and just like basically taking my life experiences and taking people from where I used to be to where I am now, or like their version of it at least. And the skills that I have right now are in marketing, and even more specifically than that, they're in LinkedIn marketing. And so the people that already have their purpose and have found it in their business, I can help them to like act on it in an even better way, to get more people in, to help more people, to do all of these things. And that's just the skill set that I have right now. I'm starting to get out content on TikTok, which is more about how I think about life and how I was in these situations and how I move forward. And I think that will be the next layer. But it's not quite there yet. For whatever reason, I can't quite work out why it's not fully committing to that yet, but it doesn't sit true. There's a lot of resistance into just dropping the marketing and going straight into that.
Wow, there's so much you went on there, and I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing both of those very traumatic life experiences. So
Thank you.
thank you. If kind of going back to the 19-year-old man who was suicidal, and I commend you for being here today. What what's one thing you would tell him about the next 7 years of life?
Good question. Um, some of it is gonna feel just as shit. Some of it is gonna feel like this. Some of it is gonna feel amazing, and some of it is just gonna feel like what, meh. It's gonna feel like whatever. That is the beauty of life. In each of those situations, there's something to take from it and to learn from it. And realistically, that's something that moves forwards. There's a lot of life within you and a lot of light within you that there is in everyone else as well. And if you can put it on your back to share your light, hopefully other people's can do theirs too. And at least you can make your world a better place. And hopefully that can expand and make the rest of the world a better place.
And you mentioned what you've gone through and where you're at now, and helping people with challenges possibly similar to that, what does that look like?
I think that's where the resistance comes in. I'm not too sure exactly how I help those people right now. Because there's even the battle of, like there's all these qualifications and things. And I think from having built a marketing agency, I know that the qualifications aren't necessarily needed. Because I've never gone and done a marketing degree. It's like all been self-taught. But when you're dealing with something as serious as that, and something which can have like pretty big implications, I think there's just more research, more understanding for me to do. Because again, as I've learned through the business, it's one thing to do it for yourself, but it's a whole new ball game to do it for someone else. So I think there's just a learning curve of how do I take what I've been through and what helped me, and how do I actually get that through to other people?
Well, that's it. It's business and our mental health and well-being is so different. We like most people who are successful at business have got successful through learning. One problem that I have with the education system is that business is quite often taught by a guy or woman who has never run a business themselves. So a person is telling you how to do all of these things and they've never done it themselves. It never really stood true to me and didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then equally, if I turned around to you and said, "Oh yeah, Nick, I've kind of done my own self teaching on how to repair your ACL, or I've watched 10 YouTube videos," versus the doctor who has all the qualifications, who's done 1,000 processes.
Yeah.
Even if I said, "Listen, mate, for the experience, I'll pay you to do this," you'd be like, "No, thank you. I'll pay the doctor 10 grand to get this done." So it's just completely different. And I think, kind of just summarizing that point, it's with business, you have room to experiment. You have more room for error. Whereas with the mind, especially, there's it's very fragile. And I think to just kind of the thought of you, what you've mentioned there, and I'm very fortunate. My mom is a psychotherapist. One of my very good friends, he's training to be one, and I've got a lot of good influences around me who are trained in these specific domains. Friends who's psychologists and whatnot, and it's kind of you want the I suppose you want the mix of the kind of the conversations you have with your friends, and you're going to help them with motivation and kind of getting them out of those tricky positions. But then you've got the layer of, and even conversations like these, I'm sure these will help you, they'll help me, they'll help other people who are listening, because I'm sure, I know for a fact, what you've spoken about with regards to suicide and sexual abuse as a child, that's things that a lot of people can resonate to, and they'll probably hit a nerve to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the branch of people who actually understand what questions to ask and what warning signs to look out for. And it's not just working off gut feelings, as a lot of us do. They can actually spot these warning signs because they've actually done the academic studying. And I think what you mentioned about the resistance, it's very prevalent. It's one of those things that quite often when someone wants to run a business, they think about the
I didn't get
issue
that. Could you try again?
longer compared to when they actually get onto it. And I feel like you're, as you said, you're talking about the onions and the layers. It sounds to me as though there's probably a very new layer opening up right now for you, which serves a way higher purpose than marketing and business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think business is a great method for growth and to find these things. Like me getting stuck at like 5, 6K, a lot of people that I know are getting stuck at 10K. The things that I've seen push people beyond that has been finding that purpose and finding that path of least resistance. And my old co-founder, when I left, he went from, well, he was at 15K for a bit, and then it took him like 2 months or something to, when he started like getting the growth, it took him 2 months to go from like 15 up to 40. And he was saying that the biggest thing for him was just whenever he was sitting down to do something and he felt like he had to force himself, he would just stop and he would just think, why is there any resistance right now? Like, why do I not want to do this? What are my beliefs or goals or past experiences which are holding me back from being able to do this fluently? And that's one of the big reasons why he believed he was able to, almost like 3x the business in 2 months. So I think the self-exploration in business is one of the most beautiful things. Like, I don't know many. In fact, I don't think I know anyone who has seen success in monetary terms, and I couldn't like go back and say like, oh, but you've also changed as a person. Everyone who I know who has seen monetary success has also changed as a person and developed into someone who is more aligned with their goals, or at least like is healthier or thinking better or has better habits and all these different things.
Absolutely, man. I remember I set my business up in 2017. I was studying a master's. I was really proud of myself because I got the grade I wanted in my master's, set this business up. I was like, damn, I've had a really good year. I've hit a lot of what I wanted to set out to. And then I had this period in 2019. I quit my job. I wouldn't say I replaced my income. I was kind of like on par with it. But as you know, it's a yo-yo with business. It's you got your guaranteed salary, but then it's 1 month you do really well, the next is kind of crap. But I didn't show the traits of a successful entrepreneur. It was fleeting. It was, oh yeah, well now I've got the autonomy and I can do this when I want. And I just didn't have discipline. And I remember this was April 2020 for me, just as COVID hit. It was just back end of March, and I thought I had a guy signing up with me, and I was like, sweet, that's going to sort a lot of issues out. And similar to what you were saying about giving people the strategies and tools, I gave him everything, and then he just went away, and he just used someone else. And I felt really betrayed by him because I spent so long talking to him and working with him. But then that was such a good experience. And I remember at the time, I called my ex up and I was like, I think I'm done with this. That's it. And then she was really helpful, really uplifting. And then I remember I went on the Asda job board.
Oh,
This
really?
is just as hit. So this must have been like 5-7 days into COVID. And I said to myself, I was like, that's it. I'm just going to get this part-time job that'll kind of tie me over. And then I don't know what happened. And this is probably something I need to look at a bit more. But I kind of really got critical of myself in a very good way. And I said, have you really come this far to now quit? You're here, you've gone alone. I was like, what is it? And I think it's kind of one of those things that a lot of the time, if you want to be successful in business, or if you're just starting out as a young person in business, cut your costs. Look at what you can eliminate. And luckily, COVID was a natural default. That cut your costs for you. Oh, like normally you go out and you go for a couple of drinks, so you spend money on this. You cannot do this.
Yeah.
So I guess it was like a blessing at that time that happened. And honestly, for me, you talk about before Christ and after Christ. I honestly look at life as before COVID, after COVID, which might sound like a play on words and might be disrespectful to some, but for me, my life, and I've spoken to a lot of people who really feel that their life changed, hopefully for most, for the better, because you had this time to yourself. And I learned so much about myself in that period of time, just getting more comfortable with being by myself. I started picking up the best habits of my life: reading, meditating, so many things that were just really focused on myself. And I did 75 hard in that period. I did so many things that really, really, I think what we're talking about, moved away from chasing dopamine to increasing the levels of endorphins. And also just, I think it was kind of playing a little bit with a layer of fear of saying, I don't ever want to have to look at a job on the Asda job board again. And I am the maker of my own destiny. And I think I also got quite real with myself to say that you haven't achieved the things in the last year with your business because you've self-sabotaged. And I know that's a big problem with entrepreneurs and just people in general. It's something's going well, that shouldn't be happening to me. I need to pull myself back down.
Yeah.
But when stuff's working and happening, saying, and you mentioned about pride, but I think it's a great emotion. I feel I, I won't reward myself with anything, but I will literally journal now and just say, yeah, you've done this well, and just things that I'm grateful for every day. I write down, and literally, I was writing in my journal last night. It was a summary of January, and
Mm.
me, that positive self talk and the affirmations that I put in there are things that I wouldn't have been comfortable saying to myself 5 years ago. I would have said, "Oh no, you don't deserve that." So it's I think so much of our success just comes from the mind and within, and we can achieve what we really set out to achieve if we just stay true to ourselves.
Definitely. I think when I think back to when I was first starting out, and you try and look for all these different secrets of how to get rich, and you watch these different podcasts and TikTok clips and everything, and people like they don't share the tactical side. They're like, if you want to get rich, you need to be a better person. I'm like, bitch, fucking tell me how to make some money. Like, I just need the strategy, and I'll start doing it. But like, you can't execute on anything like that unless you are the person that can show up consistently. It's something which is aligned with you. It's something which actually works for who you want to be and where you want to go. Like, just I remember I had a job where I was cold calling people, and it was a shit job, to be fair. Like, I basically didn't have a manager, I didn't have a script, I didn't have anything. I was like one of their first cold callers, but like I could have made good money from it. It's like a commission-based business. If I just picked up the phone and called bare people and got better at doing it and made sure that people started buying stuff, I could have made good money from it. But it didn't work because it didn't sit right with me. I wasn't the person that could take. I was doing maybe like 200 calls a day, and maybe like 10 of them would pick up. And I just couldn't deal with the fact of being rejected 190 times a day. But if I have this sort of perspective, if I put a post out, say it gets like 1,000 views or whatever, yeah, and say only one person comes through and books a call or makes an inquiry or whatever, I was technically rejected 999 times. But like, I can deal with that. That's fine. Like, it's the kind of person that I am now, that I'm able to deal with that sort of rejection and keep going forward. It's my purpose behind me that means that this is worthwhile. Like, it's worth chasing those no's and those rejections to get through to the yeses. And when you're 18, 19 and you're starting out, you think, I just need to find this magical formula of being able to sell something for a whole load of money, and then I'll be able to like invest it or put it in properties, and I'm just magically going to be able to get rich. But there's a reason people pick all these different avenues and have their own different skills and their own different outlooks on life and create these different businesses. And it's because it just depends on who you are and what you need to bring to the world. And I think that you see people leaving massive jobs, massive businesses all the time to go and chase something.
Absolutely, man. I must have been about 2 months ago now. I finished training. There's an 18-year-old guy part of my gym, and he was just listening into a conversation that I was having with a friend that I've known for years, and he was like, just very immature, easiest way to say it. Just comes into the conversation. He's like, "Do you mind if I listen in?" Yeah, of course. And sit wherever you want. And straight away, he just jumps in. He's like, "Oh, so what is it you do?" Tell him, and he's like, next question, just like filterless. He's like, "Do you make good money?" I was like, "Okay, define good." He's like, "Oh, well, like, do you make $5,000 a month?" It's like, maybe. I didn't want to answer the question. It's like, "Do you make 10 grand a month?" I was like, maybe. He's like, "Wow." And I was like, he's like, and then he's like, so you're successful? I was like, define successful, because success to everyone, success to a guy in Da Nang, Vietnam, could be waking up, trotting down to the beach at 6 o'clock in the morning, playing football with his friends, having a really nice breakfast, and going back to his wife and kids, and working in the day. And then success is just, everyone's definition of success is completely different. It's like our DNA; it is all different. And I think when you're that young that young boy, that young man, he will not be successful in the next few years because he just does not have the mindset primed to be successful. The way how
Mm.
he looks at things, he's expecting someone to, and I've had conversations with him afterwards, but he's expecting someone to take his hand, pull him along, and say, "There you go, pick that up, pick that up. There's a bit of work for you there. There's some money there for you."
Hmm.
And he's just not doing the right. He's just not doing any of the right work on
Yeah.
himself to get him to that level because he can set up the business. You can show him, and this is why I believe most people who are coached are unsuccessful. And I coach people, and now I'm very particular with who I work with because I think a lot of them drain your energy. But most people self sabotage. They've set themselves up into this state where it is near enough impossible for them to be successful. And I've seen this with clients who I've worked with who are in their 40s, 50s, some of the most intelligent people, but they're consistently tripping themselves up with what they say, how they act. And
Hmm.
I'd say one of the biggest lessons I've learned about business is remove emotions from your actions, your decisions, how you talk to people, because I've seen that to be one of the biggest killers
Hmm.
of people's success. And for me, I struggle to respect someone who cannot control their emotions, not just in business, but in life.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think maybe to add on a fourth book, I think it's huge on TikTok right now, but The Courage to Be Disliked.
Who's that one?
Uh, a Japanese man,
Uh,
but
it's
basically it gives you a new
Fumitake
school of
Koga and
psychology. So opposed to like Freud
Ichiro
and Jung, it's
Kishimi.
Adler's
Probably butchered the names.
psychology. But basically, it's framing. Part of it is framing emotions as a tool that people use to try and get a result. And so if you're feeling angry, it's usually because you need some extra energy to do something or you're trying to make someone submit to you.
Why?
If you're feeling sad, it's because you need to sort of like slow down, focus on the things that are important, and understanding that emotions are not a reaction to a situation, but it's a tool that you use to achieve a goal has really helped.
So look, I've got a question from the internet for you, which I would love to get your expertise in. So a fellow entrepreneur asked, what's your go-to strategy to effectively leverage LinkedIn and generate a pipeline for your business?
Okay. The first step is to truly understand your audience. So if you have clients that have worked with you in the past, have a look at the sales calls, find the reasons as to what made them say yes to working with you. If you don't have anyone that's worked with you, have a look at the reasons why people book sales calls. What was the problem that they were trying to solve? What's the goals that they were trying to achieve? If you don't have that and you're creating content, then you can look at what content gets reactions. When you speak to people in the DMs, what things are people speaking about? But essentially break them down into, to make it super basic, what goals they have, what problems they have, what misconceptions they have. Then you want to optimize your profile so that the big problem or the big goal that people are trying to achieve is in your banner, in your headline, in your about section, and is added as like a reason to click the book in a call button. After that, it's then getting a sales navigator list, definitely worth the £70 a month or whatever it is. Get super targeted with the people that you're adding to your network. Send out 200 connection requests per week, which are blank. Create content which introduces these problems to people so that people understand. People are going to have misconceptions and people aren't going to realize the problems they're experiencing. You are the expert, and so introduce that problem to them. Let them know that this is something that they're experiencing based off your experience with other people. Then go forward and solve those problems, and then provide proof that you solved those problems for other people. Then on the DM side, you want to reach out to people, send them a little message just to let them know that you're a human and that like you're a nice person. Give them a compliment on their profile or something, like just a genuine compliment that you find on their website or profile. And then ask them a yes or no question as to whether they're experiencing this problem. That qualifies them as someone you can help. Then ask them more questions to understand their current situation, the problems which are creating this bigger problem for them, so that you magnify the problem. and then book them onto a sales call if you believe that this is someone that can help. I send out 200 connections per week. I send 50 DMs per week, and I create content once a day, Monday to Sunday, so 7 a week. Through doing that, I get about 20 qualified sales calls per month. That is, in the gist of things, all you have to do on LinkedIn. It's relatively simple, and it basically all comes down to how well do you understand your audience, and how well can you then package that problem and goal that you solve and get for people into content.
Simple but not easy. That's it, Nick. I like that explanation, and as someone who's been using LinkedIn for the last probably 6-7 years, it's a really high level guideline on everything. Nick, what's next for you, and where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Nick C on LinkedIn. The next part of my journey is building out this marketing agency, still helping out these founders who know what they want to do and getting them more leads, building out something which can help the people at the start of their journey as well, making something more affordable, so that people can start signing their first clients as opposed to signing clients more consistently. And then after that, I believe it's the things that we've talked about. It's probably peeling back that onion and finding that it will be helping people to find their purpose in the first place, as opposed to the people that found their purpose in business.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck with that, and look forward to seeing your journey continue and blossom.
Yeah, you too, Joe. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Really enjoyed speaking with you.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome.